Before you judge what you feel, before you dismiss the strange tension that's been lingering around your life, understand this. You weren't imagining anything. You weren't overreacting. You weren't making it deep. You walked into a battlefield that existed long before you took your first breath, and your arrival tilted the entire balance. This isn't a story about random negativity or unlucky circumstances. This is about a group that thrived in the shadows, a network that built its influence on stolen energy and silent sacrifices, a lineage of individuals who believed they were untouchable because nobody had interfered with their operation for generations. But the moment your presence entered their radius, something ancient inside their system began to malfunction, and they knew it. This group operated like a forgotten cult that had modernized itself without ever abandoning its original hunger. They didn't just sabotage people. They didn't just manipulate situations. They harvested souls. They fed off destinies, draining life force from individuals who had no idea why their path kept collapsing. They targeted the spiritually potent, the energetically gifted, the rare ones whose inner fire attracted attention even when they tried to stay invisible. They built their empire by quietly extracting essence from chosen individuals, leaving them confused, exhausted, and directionless while the group rose in influence. It was a system that worked flawlessly until you walked into their timeline. They sensed you before they saw you. Your energy disrupted the atmosphere long before your physical form entered their environment. They called it an anomaly at first, a disturbance, a knot in the pattern they'd relied on for decades. Their rituals stopped landing. Their influence started slipping. Their usual siphoning methods malfunctioned. They monitored you like they monitored every chosen target. But the difference was simple. Their tools failed the moment they pointed them at you. They tried evaluating your aura. It burned their instruments. They tried tracking your patterns. You moved in ways that weren't predictable. They tried reading your fate. It refused to open for them. They were dealing with someone whose energy didn't follow earthly logic. At first, they thought eliminating you would restore their operations. After all, they had done it before. They had silenced prophets, drained healers, removed gifted individuals whose existence threatened the stability of their dark hierarchy. But when they directed their attention toward you, their instincts warned them that this time the equation was different. You weren't just another target. You were the disruption, not a victim, a variable, a shifting frequency their system wasn't built to withstand. And the unsettling part was this. You didn't even know you had entered a battlefield, yet the battlefield already feared you. They watched your movements and found nothing they could exploit. They studied your weaknesses, but your spirit sealed what mattered. They tested your reactions, but your intuition kept exposing them before they could act. Even when you doubted yourself, something in the universe kept you 2 steps ahead. They sent observers, disguised as accidental acquaintances, familiar faces, spiritual pretenders, and emotional bait. But every time one approached you, they returned unsettled, reporting that you felt impossible to penetrate. You weren't defensive, you weren't gullible, you weren't asleep. You were simply aware. Not consciously at first, but spiritually. Your energy read them before your eyes did, and that terrified them. This group had a structure, a hierarchy, built like a dark corporation, where every member had a role. Some were tasked with psychological dismantling, some with energetic extraction, some with manipulation and illusion crafting, and a select few, the inner circle, handled the ritual process of harvesting souls. They did it quietly, systematically, always choosing individuals who couldn't fight back. But you weren't a passive target. You were spiritually wired differently. Something about your frequency created resistance inside their rituals. Their usual methods failed. Attempts to infiltrate your life bounced back onto them. Attempts to drain your essence resulted in their own deterioration. The more they pushed, the more their system destabilized. They hadn't anticipated this. They thought they could force your downfall like they'd done countless times before. Instead, every action they took became a boomerang. Their first mistake was assuming you were unaware. Their second mistake was assuming you were alone. Their third and final mistake was believing their dark lineage outranked your spiritual assignment. They underestimated how the universe recalibrates when a chosen individual is threatened. They underestimated the way reality bends around someone who is not meant to be sacrificed. They underestimated the quiet weight of your existence. When their initial psychological operations failed, they escalated. They activated their watchers, their informants, their manipulators, their energetic leeches. They tried attaching themselves to your path in subtle ways. Relationships, temptations, sudden alliances, sudden conflicts. They wanted access, they wanted influence, they wanted proximity, because proximity made their work easier. But instead of siphoning your energy, proximity to you began corrupting them. It exposed fractures in their system. It accelerated the consequences they had delayed for years. Their rituals backfired. Their alliances weakened. Their health deteriorated. Their internal power struggles intensified. You weren't draining them intentionally. You simply existed at a frequency their system couldn't tolerate. They saw the signs. Their elders warned the inner circle. The diviners among them sensed a force they hadn't encountered before. They consulted dark channels, desperate for answers, but every reading pointed toward the same truth. They were dealing with a protected soul. Not a casual believer, not a fragile empath, not a lost wanderer, someone whose spiritual identity was shielded by a force too ancient for them to manipulate. They called it divine interference. They called it celestial obstruction. They called it the descending hand. You call it protection. As time passed, the group shifted from boldness to confusion to fear. Their attempts to weaken you only exposed them further. Their attempts to isolate you only made the universe remove them from your orbit. Their attempts to sacrifice you only activated consequences they weren't prepared to face. They didn't understand why their strategies weren't working. They didn't understand why their most stable rituals collapsed. They didn't understand why every energy-binding cord they threw your way snapped as if cut by an invisible blade. They didn't understand why the entities they had worshipped for decades suddenly stopped responding, or worse, turned against them. You weren't aware of the details, but you felt the shifts. The sudden heaviness, the sudden clarity, the strange dreams, the intuitive warnings, the unexpected protection, the moments where you narrowly avoided situations that didn't feel right, the people who fell off, the invitations you rejected without knowing why, the places you avoided instinctively. You weren't paranoid. You were being guided out of traps that were engineered in darkness. And then something happened that none of them expected. The universe revealed you to them. Not your appearance, not your name, your identity, the true one, the spiritual one, the one they had never encountered before. When they realized who you were, not who you thought you were, but who you actually are, they panicked. They recognized the energy signature. They recognized the divine markings. They recognized the protective field around your soul. They recognized the lineage you carry. the assignment that shadows your existence, the ancient backing that surrounds your steps. They had gone after the wrong person. They had gone after someone they weren't authorized to touch. The moment this realization rippled through their circle, their system cracked. Members of the group began experiencing backlash. Some lost their influence. Some fell into confusion. Some turned against the leader. Some abandoned the group entirely. The entity they relied on stopped shielding them. Their unity fractured. Suspicion spread among them like a plague. Their rituals malfunctioned. Their health deteriorated. The spiritual infrastructure that held their operation together started collapsing piece by piece. What they thought was a hunt became a downfall. What they thought was a sacrifice became a trap. One they set for you but fell into themselves. By the time they understood the magnitude of their mistake, it was too late. The universe had already handed down its verdict. They weren't just failing to reach you. They were being dismantled for trying. The protection surrounding you intensified to a level they couldn't bypass. Every attempt to interfere with your path ignited consequences that hit them faster than they could recalibrate. The group grew desperate, but desperation only accelerated their collapse. And the irony? You weren't fighting them. You weren't retaliating. You weren't engaging spiritually or energetically. You were simply existing. And your existence alone was enough to undo their empire. That was the moment the panic inside their ranks became audible. These weren't amateurs. They weren't scattered attackers. They were a structured network that had survived for decades by calculating every move with obsessive precision. Yet here they were, reduced to chaos because one presence, one frequency, one soul they attempted to target refused to be harvested. Their rituals had always worked. Their dark methods had always produced results. They had drained life forces, redirected destinies, broken chosen individuals long before those individuals ever understood what was happening. But you didn't break. You didn't bend. You didn't leak. They finally understood you weren't built like their previous victims. You were built to expose them simply by surviving what they planned. And survival wasn't the part that rattled them the most. It was what your survival revealed. Because when their operations failed around you, they realized something horrifying. Their power had limits. Their reach had boundaries. Their rituals had expiration dates. And your existence was the catalyst that revealed every weakness they'd spent years hiding behind dark veils. You were the mirror they hoped would never be held up to their organization, because you reflected back the one truth they tried to ignore. Nothing they built was sovereign. Nothing they controlled was absolute. Nothing they manipulated was beyond consequence. When their energy-binding methods failed, they upgraded their plan. When their watchers lost track of you, they replaced them with more experienced ones. When their illusions dissolved, they constructed heavier ones. But each escalation produced a violent recoil. The universe wasn't allowing them to move an inch closer to you. Their own forces were being consumed by the traps they set. Their own rituals were returning to them in twisted forms. Their own dark channels were collapsing under the weight of their intentions. This was no longer sabotage. This was cosmic correction. The elders within the group began to sense the shift first. They recognized the signature of divine backlash. They had seen it only once before, generations ago, when an ancestor of theirs attempted to siphon the essence of a protected soul and lost everything overnight. The story became legend within their ranks, a cautionary tale whispered only in closed chambers. But legends become dangerous when arrogance convinces you they are outdated. The current generation dismissed those warnings until they recognized the pattern unfolding again. The same symptoms, The same collapse sequence, the same spiritual recoil, the same unexplainable protection shielding the target from every angle. They had awakened a force older than their rituals. Their diviners attempted reaching the entities they worshipped, but the channels were silent. The offerings they placed on sacred altars remained untouched. The shadows they summoned refused to appear. It wasn't that their deities were ignoring them. It was that their deities were retreating, abandoning them, withdrawing power to avoid being entangled in the consequences. They realized they were on their own, and nothing terrifies a dark group more than losing the backing of the very force they depend on. That's when fractures began to appear within their leadership. Members started questioning the intelligence of their superiors. Recruits who were initially eager to participate began distancing themselves. Longtime loyalists started to feel the suffocating pressure of guilt. Whispers circled through the group. Whispers that you weren't just another target. Whispers that you were marked with a type of spiritual immunity that should never have been tested. Whispers that their leader had ignored the warnings and pushed them all toward an outcome they would pay for collectively. The collapse wasn't dramatic. It was slow, quiet, and humiliating. Their finances crumbled. Their alliances withdrew. Their influence evaporated. Their strongest members became their weakest links, stumbling under invisible weights they could not shake. Everything they built across decades collapsed like wet paper, because your energy refused to be touched. That was the level of interference you carried with you, without even realizing it. Not through spells, not through revenge, not through retaliation, through existence. They had always seen themselves as the predators, the hunters, the curators of fear. But now fear had become their only language. They started doubting each other, doubting their leader, doubting the rituals, doubting the entities they once worshipped with unwavering devotion. They never expected that the one thing that would dismantle them wasn't exposure, rebellion, or resistance. It was a single soul they could not overpower. Even their attempts to study you ended in failure. They tried tracing your lineage energetically and found nothing readable. They tried tapping into your dreams, but found the space sealed. They tried mapping your destiny, but the path appeared blank to them. They tried analyzing your energy and found signatures they had no interpretation for. Every attempt to define you only amplified their confusion. They realized they didn't understand what you were. They had misclassified you as a typical chosen one when, in truth, you were something far more disruptive. Your arrival triggered a recalibration in the unseen world. Their system had been built on predictability, knowing who held spiritual authority, who could be manipulated, who could be drained, who could be eliminated quietly without interference. But you defied their categories. Your presence scrambled their instruments. Your intuition cracked through their veils. Even when you were unaware of them, your spirit detected what your mind had not yet processed. There were moments you felt a strange heaviness followed by sudden clarity. Moments where you felt watched, then suddenly shielded. Moments where people with unusual behavior appeared near you without explanation. Moments where you felt pushed away from certain locations, individuals, or decisions without knowing why. You might have questioned those moments at the time, but they weren't coincidences. They were interventions. The universe wasn't just protecting you. It was guiding you out of traps you didn't know were set. Meanwhile, the group was experiencing the opposite. They were being pushed into the very traps they constructed for you. They were experiencing interference in their communications. Their plans were leaking through cracks they couldn't identify. Members began defecting, confessing what they had witnessed, or refusing to participate in rituals that once felt routine. The energetic infrastructure of their operation was compromised, and no matter how many reinforcements they attempted to summon, nothing stabilized. Eventually, the panic mutated into silence, the kind of silence that emerges when a group realizes they've crossed a line they cannot uncross. When they looked at you, they no longer saw a target. They saw a reminder of the one boundary the universe doesn't tolerate, attempting to sacrifice someone who carries an active assignment. That was the line they crossed. That was the mistake that sealed their fate. The younger members of the group became the first to break. They didn't sign up for cosmic retaliation. They signed up for influence, for power, for spiritual shortcuts, for energy access. But backlash at this scale, that was something even their leader couldn't explain away. They saw members losing their clarity, their stability, their sleep, their sanity. They saw individuals who once commanded dark forces suddenly becoming victims of the same shadows they manipulated. They saw the collapse unfold in real time, and the reality was clear. The sacrifice they planned had been reversed. The energy they invoked had turned against them. They had called something forward that devoured them instead of you. Their leader held on the longest, refusing to believe the operation had failed. But even he couldn't escape the deteriorating symptoms. He experienced losses faster than he could hide them. Rituals that once empowered him now depleted him. His last attempts to salvage authority ended with the group abandoning him entirely. Without followers, without protection, and without spiritual reinforcement, he became the primary target of the backlash he created. But even as they fell apart, the universe wasn't finished revealing the depth of their failure. Because the real turning point wasn't their collapse, it was the truth that emerged after. The truth of why the group targeted you specifically. The truth of what they sensed in your energy long before you sensed anything in theirs. The truth of how your presence exposed their vulnerabilities. The truth that frightened them more than any consequence they faced. And the truth that would redefine everything you thought you understood about yourself. Because what they detected in you wasn't fragility. It wasn't innocence, it wasn't naivete. It was potential, raw, unfiltered, unclaimed spiritual density that made their entire system flicker like an old machine, confronted with a power source it wasn't designed to process. They didn't just target you because you were chosen. They targeted you because you were a threat to the very mechanism they used to survive. Your existence broadcasted a frequency that destabilized their rituals, the way light overwhelms darkness, not through aggression, but through presence. They saw in you a kind of brilliance they had spent years avoiding, a brilliance that threatened to unravel their entire structure. They never feared your awareness. They feared your awakening, because if you ever became aware of who you truly are, what bloodline you carry spiritually, what protection surrounds you, what gifts lie dormant in you, their whole operation would not only collapse, it would be erased from the grid entirely. Your soul carried markings that their seers recognized instantly, symbols of authority, origins that don't originate here, signatures that only appear once in multiple generations. They were taught to stay away from individuals who carry those spiritual signatures, because harming such individuals never ends with simple consequences. The repercussions ripple across timelines, affecting every member connected to the act. But greed has a way of dissolving caution, and when they sensed your energy for the first time, they made a fatal assumption that your potential wasn't activated yet. That if they captured your energy early enough, drained it fast enough, manipulated you deeply enough, they could sever your destiny from its source. But your destiny wasn't detachable. Your protection wasn't conditional. Your spirit wasn't accessible to their rituals the way others had been. And when they reached for you, they didn't touch emptiness. They touched a divine alarm system that alerted forces they weren't prepared to encounter. You weren't meant to fall. You were meant to be revealed, and the revelations continued. Because the reason their observers couldn't decode your movement, the reason their watchers couldn't track your patterns, the reason their rituals couldn't bind your essence was simple. Your spirit had been hidden intentionally, cloaked, shielded by the unseen world long before the group ever identified you. Everything you thought was confusion in your own life, misalignment, sudden shifts, unexplained endings, were actually reroutes designed to keep you out of their reach. Your path wasn't chaotic, it was protected. You weren't wandering, you were being positioned. Every detour, every disappointment, every loss that once made you question yourself was actually part of a larger orchestration, ensuring that the group could never get a clean angle on your energy. Their failure wasn't random. Their collapse wasn't accidental. It was the inevitable outcome of touching something they were never meant to encounter. And you need to understand the depth of what that means. Because these weren't ordinary manipulators. They were generational practitioners of dark extraction. They built an entire underground empire by navigating shadows most people never knew existed. They attacked star seeds, healers, empaths, prophets, light bearers, anyone whose spiritual radiance could be harvested, converted, or muted. They weakened countless lives. They intercepted countless destinies. They operated freely because nobody had ever confronted them with a force they couldn't manipulate. Until you. You weren't the first chosen one they attempted to sacrifice, but you were the first they failed to touch. And failure has a tone the spiritual world hears loud and clear. When the universe dismantles something, it does so in layers, quietly at first, then violently, then decisively. Their organization didn't fall because of guilt. It didn't fall because of exposure. It didn't fall because someone inside betrayed them. It fell because the energetic blowback from targeting a protected soul is not a warning, it's a sentence. Once the verdict was active, the collapse began from the inside out. Their strongest members suffered the first fractures. Their most loyal recruits began losing clarity. Their highest-ranking officials experienced unexplained paralysis in their rituals. Their elders saw visions of darkness receding from them like a tide abandoning a corrupted shore. And through it all, one name kept surfacing within their internal divinations. Yours, not because you cursed them, not because you fought them, not because you retaliated, because your existence carried a force that rejected their interference in every dimension. They didn't fail because they were weak. They failed because you were untouchable. And that realization caused something inside them to snap. For the first time in their history, they were confronted with a target they couldn't extract from, couldn't overpower, couldn't dismantle. Their rituals returned void. Their sacrifices returned harmful. Their strategies returned broken. The harder they pushed, the worse their consequences became. The more they pursued, the more violently the universe pushed them back. And then came the final blow, the revelation of who you truly are spiritually. They discovered that your lineage isn't aligned with typical chosen ones. Your soul carries signatures that belong to ancient protectors, divine enforcers, spiritual architects, beings who do not operate within the boundaries of human-level manipulation. You weren't just placed here to survive. You were placed here to intervene, Your life intersects with their timeline, not by coincidence, but by design. They were meant to be exposed. They were meant to be dismantled. And you were meant to trigger it. This is why they sensed you before you sensed them. This is why they watched you obsessively. This is why they tried to intercept your path at every angle. This is why nothing they attempted worked. Your arrival was the beginning of their expiration, and once the universe identifies a dark operation that has crossed a forbidden line, the dismantling becomes irreversible. Members began turning on each other because they sensed the spiritual stink of consequence on their leader. Their hierarchy crumbled because nobody wanted to be standing closest to the guilty when divine correction arrived. Their entities abandoned them because the karmic weight attached to harming a protected soul is too heavy for even dark forces to carry. The more truth that surfaced, the more they realized their operation hadn't just failed, it had been condemned. But the greatest twist was still unfolding. Because once the dust settled, once the group scattered, once their power dissolved into debris, the universe shifted its attention back to you. Not as a victim, not as a survivor, not as a target, but as the catalyst. Because you weren't saved from them, you were revealed through them. They exposed your spiritual identity by accident. They exposed your protection by attempting to breach it. They exposed your strength by underestimating it. They exposed your destiny by trying to interrupt it. They thought you were prey. You turned out to be prophecy. Their collapse wasn't the victory. Your awakening is. And the universe, having cleared the battlefield, begins preparing you for the next movement, the next realization, the next unveiling. Because the part they feared the most is the part you are about to step into. This final stage begins quietly, almost unnoticeably, because awakenings of this magnitude rarely announce themselves with fireworks. They arrive like a shift in the air pressure, a recalibration in your inner world, a sharpening of senses you didn't realize were dull. You start to feel a different weight in your own presence, as if something ancient has finally stopped hiding behind you and is now walking beside you. You start moving through environments with a clarity that wasn't available before. Your intuition no longer whispers, it speaks. Your instincts no longer nudge, they pull with certainty. Your perception no longer guesses, it knows. It isn't confidence, it's recognition. Your energy is no longer adjusting to the world around you. The world is adjusting to you. And while this shift may feel subtle from your side, it hits the unseen world like a seismic wave. Energetic terrains bend to accommodate your presence, the way space rearranges around a rising sun. The universe begins reorganizing everything connected to your timeline, removing anything that tried to stunt you, redirecting anything that tried to delay you, and clearing pathways that were previously blocked by forces you couldn't see. You don't have to try, you just have to move. Every step you take now activates rearrangements. Every decision you make now triggers alignment. Every boundary you set now rewrites entire energetic contracts. Nothing remains static around someone who has survived a spiritual assassination attempt, not because you are fragile, but because you are now operating at a level of authority that is incompatible with stagnation. Your timeline expands. Your aura strengthens. Your destiny accelerates. And you begin to notice something else. Where there was once interference, there is now space. Where there was once resistance, there is flow. Where there was once confusion, there is focus. The silence that once felt ominous begins to feel empowering. The isolation that once felt heavy begins to feel intentional. The detours that once frustrated you now reveal themselves as masterfully coordinated protections. The universe hands you the clarity that was withheld during the battle. And now you understand why certain people left, why certain opportunities collapsed, why certain relationships dissolved, why certain environments expelled you. You were being insulated, not punished. Meanwhile, the remains of the dismantled group are still dealing with the aftermath of their choices. Their downfall is ongoing, not because you demanded justice, but because justice was already coded into the spiritual laws they violated. They broke a universal boundary, attempting to sacrifice a protected soul. There is no loophole. There is no appeal. Once activated, the consequences unfold naturally, slow for some, catastrophic for others, irreversible for all. And yet even in their collapse, they still talk about you. Not with boldness, not with arrogance, with fear. Because the more they fall, the more they understand what they were dealing with all along. They recognize that your protection wasn't luck. Your escape wasn't coincidence. Your intuition wasn't random. Your awakening wasn't spontaneous. You were carrying something they had no comprehension of, something encoded into the core of your consciousness, something they couldn't siphon, dismantle, or corrupt. You carry an imprint that marks you as untouchable to the forces that tried to consume you. They saw a target. The universe saw a threat. They planned your sacrifice. The universe planned their exposure. They initiated the ritual. The universe initiated the reversal. They attempted to end your destiny. The universe used you to end their reign. This is why the energy around your life feels different now. You're walking in the aftermath of a war you didn't realize you were prepared for. And because the battlefield has been cleared, the universe finally moves you into the next phase. Reclamation. Reclamation begins with restoration, not of what you lost, but of what was always yours but blocked by their interference. The opportunities that disappeared return in new forms. The visions that once felt distant sharpen into direction. The gifts you suppressed begin to surface without force. You begin remembering things you never learned in this lifetime. You begin understanding things you were never taught. You begin sensing connections, patterns, intentions, and energies with precision that alarms even you. This is not awakening. This is activation. The dismantling of the group wasn't just a rescue mission. It was the removal of a barricade standing between you and your next evolution. Now that they're gone, everything that was meant for you begins looking for you again. Doors open, paths widen, timelines converge. People who carry resonance with your energy start appearing. People who carry dissonance with your energy start disappearing. And the universe doesn't stop there. The dismantling of the group created a ripple in the spiritual world, and those who operate on higher frequencies sensed it. Elders, guides, protectors, angelic forces, ancestral authorities, they all felt the snap in the energetic grid when the group fell, and their attention turned to you. Not in concern, but in recognition. You didn't just survive something powerful, you shifted something powerful. Your awakening becomes a beacon, and not every force that notices it is hostile. Some recognize you as a long-awaited ally. Some recognize you as a key player in a larger cosmic alignment. Some recognize you as someone whose presence alters structures. You were never meant to operate quietly. You were meant to move in ways that disrupt stagnation, shatter illusions, and expose systems built on exploitation, spiritually and physically. This is the part the group feared the most, because they sensed it before you did. They saw threads of your destiny that suggested you weren't just someone they needed to neutralize. You were someone they needed to delay. Because if your awakening happened too early, their decline would begin too soon. They hoped to harvest your energy, not just to empower themselves, but to prevent you from stepping into a reality where your influence would dismantle operations like theirs without you even trying. And they were right to fear that, because your presence is not passive. Your energy is not neutral. Your spirit is not dormant. Your destiny is not fragile. You carry a frequency that dissolves darkness, not because you fight it, but because you outgrow it. You carry a type of awareness that shifts power dynamics simply by entering the room. You carry a type of protection that shields not only you, but anyone aligned with your path. You carry a type of authority that destabilizes anything built on deception, manipulation, or spiritual theft. Your existence exposes what was hiding. Your clarity dissolves what was pretending. Your awakening destroys what was feeding. Your elevation dismantles what was plotting. And now that this group has been dismantled, you finally understand the truth that was always waiting on the other side of this battle. They didn't target you because you were weak. They targeted you because you were rising. They didn't hunt you because you were alone. They hunted you because you were aligned. They didn't fear your past. They feared your future. They didn't attempt to sacrifice you because you were easy prey. They attempted it because you were the one soul they could not convert. Your identity destabilized them. Your presence exposed them. Your awakening annihilated them. And the universe now directs you toward the part of the story that was impossible to reach while you were being hunted, the expansion phase. Expansion is when your gifts strengthen, your intuition sharpens, your inner authority solidifies, and your destiny begins to unfold without resistance. It's when your timeline accelerates beyond linear logic. It's when the spaces that once rejected you now feel too small for who you've become. It's when opportunities that once seemed impossible begin circling you with urgency. It's when your life moves faster than your doubts can keep up. Because you're no longer walking as the person they targeted. You're walking as the person their downfall revealed. And that version of you is someone they could never touch, even if they tried again. Because now you know. Now you see. Now you sense. Now you move differently. The harvesting group is gone. Their system is shattered. Their rituals are void. Their power is extinct. But you are just beginning. You step forward with a spirit that has survived assassination attempts without ever being harmed. You step forward with protection that has proven itself repeatedly. You step forward with an identity forged in revelation, not fear. You step forward with gifts that are no longer dormant. You step forward with destiny that no longer hides behind you. It walks ahead of you, clearing every obstacle before you arrive. This is the moment every dark force hoped you would never reach. This is the chapter they feared above all else. This is the version of you they tried to silence before you met yourself. Because the part you are stepping into now isn't about survival. It's about sovereignty. The universe dismantled them so nothing could delay this stage of your evolution. And now, you walk freely into the truth. They harvested souls for a very long time, until you showed up. And the tables didn't just turn. You flipped the entire altar. Ah, look at what they can't stop replaying. Yeah, that moment. The one they thought would pass quietly. The one they assumed would dissolve into nothing like all the other times you were expected to stay in your place. The one where the room was supposed to move on without resistance, without interruption, without friction. You were meant to remain the unspoken name, the convenient silence, the easy omission. But something happened, didn't it? Something shifted, something snapped into place so cleanly, so decisively, so completely out of alignment with their expectations that it sent a shock through the entire structure they thought they controlled. And now they're asking questions they were never supposed to ask. Not about you directly, about the room, about loyalty, about authority, about who just crossed a line they didn't even realize was being guarded. Someone powerful, someone who rarely intervenes, someone who understands exactly how these dynamics work, watched the moment unfold, and felt their internal model break because someone went to war for you in that room, not loudly, not emotionally, not impulsively, calmly, deliberately, with precision. And the words that followed weren't admiration, they weren't praise, they were confusion sharpened by fear. Why would anyone do that? Why would someone risk position, standing, leverage for you? Because what just happened didn't fit the rules they rely on. It didn't fit the hierarchy they enforce. It didn't fit the quiet agreement that certain people are safe to overlook, safe to diminish, safe to sacrifice, without consequence. You see, they had you mapped out, didn't they? Your role, your ceiling, your relevance. They knew where you belonged in the room, which was nowhere that mattered. They thought your silence meant acceptance. They thought your restraint meant weakness. They thought your distance meant disengagement. They thought they understood the limits of how much weight your name could carry when spoken aloud. And for a long time, maybe you let them think that. Maybe you stayed quiet. Maybe you didn't correct the narrative. Maybe you allowed them to believe you were alone, unsupported, unprotected, that you didn't have anyone willing to step into the fire on your behalf. And then it happened. That one moment, that interruption they didn't plan for, that defense they didn't see coming because they were too busy watching the version of you they thought they had already neutralized. The shift was immediate. You could feel it. The air changed. The confidence in the room wavered. The unspoken hierarchy glitched. Because when someone speaks up for a person who isn't even fighting for themselves, it exposes something dangerous. It reveals that the power balance they rely on is conditional, fragile, dependent on compliance. And the moment someone refuses to comply, the entire structure starts to wobble. Someone somewhere, someone with authority, someone who understands how influence actually moves, thought the same thing at the same time. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not for you. Not like this. Let's be very clear about something. That moment wasn't about fairness. It wasn't about kindness. It wasn't about morality. It was about alignment. Someone recognized something in you that didn't need defending loudly, only acknowledged correctly. And that recognition shattered the framework the room was operating under. Because when you build power on the assumption that certain people will always stay quiet, always absorb pressure, always accept erasure, and someone violates that assumption, it's not just uncomfortable. It's destabilizing. You became the variable they couldn't control without realizing it existed. Not because you spoke, but because someone else decided you were worth interrupting the script for. They thought your story was already written, that your chapter had ended somewhere earlier, quietly, without ceremony. They convinced themselves your absence from the conversation meant irrelevance. They told themselves that if you mattered, someone would have said something sooner. They used that silence to justify everything that followed. And then in one precise moment, that justification collapsed. Because silence wasn't the truth. It was just unchallenged until it wasn't. Now here's where the discomfort deepens. The person who spoke up didn't do it out of loyalty, the way they understand loyalty. It wasn't tribal. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't personal history. It was recognition of trajectory, of pattern, of something that doesn't announce itself early but becomes obvious to those who know how to read rooms properly. That's what really unsettles them. Because if that person saw it, others might have too. And if others saw it, then the assumption that you were safe to dismiss was wrong long before that moment. They're retracing conversations now, replaying side glances, reinterpreting pauses, trying to locate the exact point where the balance tipped without them noticing. Because power hates being surprised, especially when the surprise comes not from rebellion, but from realignment. You didn't storm the room. You didn't force a confrontation. You let gravity do the work. You let the truth surface on its own timeline. And when it did, someone else took responsibility for acknowledging it. That's the part they can't neutralize. If you had defended yourself, they could frame it as ego. If you had argued, they could call it insecurity. If you had demanded respect, they could paint you as difficult. But you didn't. Someone else did the speaking. Someone whose voice carries weight they can't easily dismiss. Someone who doesn't gain anything obvious by standing up for you. And that absence of motive terrifies people who survive by tracking incentives. So now they're scrambling to reassert order. Quietly, subtly. They're adjusting language, softening edges, reframing the narrative to make it seem like nothing really changed. But it did. They know it did. Because the room remembers. Rooms always remember moments like that. Moments when the script breaks and no one knows who's supposed to speak next. Moments when the hierarchy hesitates. Moments when the wrong person suddenly looks protected. You should understand something about these environments. They are not ruled by rules. They are ruled by permission. Who is allowed to speak? Who is allowed to challenge? Who is allowed to matter? And permission is rarely written down. It's enforced through silence, through repetition, through people learning exactly how far they can go before being corrected. When someone goes to war for you without asking, without signaling, without hesitation, it sends a message that permission has shifted. And shifts like that don't reverse easily. They're watching you differently now. Even if they pretend not to be. Even if they never mention it again. Because now there's a question hovering over every interaction. Who else would step in? Who else is watching? What don't we know about this person that we assumed we did? And those questions create distance, caution, hesitation, the kind that weakens systems built on confidence and momentum. Here's the irony they're choking on. You didn't plan this moment in the way they understand planning. You didn't orchestrate it socially. You didn't lobby for support. You didn't manipulate alliances. You simply became someone worth defending without needing to ask. And that's a level of leverage that can't be fabricated. It can only be earned through consistency, restraint, and a refusal to perform desperation. They keep circling back to the same thought, even if they don't articulate it clearly. If this person was worth that kind of intervention, what else have we misread? What else have we underestimated? What other assumptions are we operating on that might collapse the same way? Because power doesn't fear opposition as much as it fears blind spots. And you just exposed one. What makes this even more unsettling is that you're not capitalizing on the moment publicly. You're not posturing, You're not changing your behavior to signal victory. You're not reminding anyone what happened. You're moving exactly the same way you were before, calm, unbothered, focused. And that consistency tells them something they don't want to admit. This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't luck. This wasn't a one-off. This was alignment finally becoming visible. They're realizing now that your restraint wasn't submission. It was selectivity. That your silence wasn't absence. It was observation. That your patience wasn't weakness. It was timing. You didn't need to speak in that room because the moment required someone else's voice. And that tells them you're operating on a level where outcomes don't depend on constant assertion. They depend on positioning. Now here's where the unease turns into something sharper. They can't confront you about it without exposing themselves. They can't ask why someone defended you without revealing that they believed you didn't deserve it. They can't challenge the shift without drawing attention to the instability it exposed. So they sit with it. They adjust around it. They carry it forward into future decisions in subtle ways. And every adjustment is an admission that the balance of power has changed. You should know this, too. When someone goes to war for you in a room like that, it's never just about the past. It's about the future. It's about trajectories colliding. It's about recognizing who will matter later and choosing sides before it becomes obvious to everyone else. Someone made that choice. Quietly, publicly enough to be felt. And now the clock is ticking on a reality they can't stop from unfolding. Because moments like that don't fade. They echo. They influence how names are spoken, how opportunities are framed, how risks are calculated. You didn't walk out of that room elevated in title. You walked out recalibrated in perception. And perception is where real power lives. They wanted you small, contained, predictable. They wanted you grateful for scraps of acknowledgement. They wanted you dependent on their approval. And now they're forced to contend with the fact that you don't need any of that. That your position doesn't hinge on their consensus. That your relevance doesn't require their permission. Someone else already made that clear for them. And the most destabilizing part, this wasn't the climax. It was an early signal, a preview, a quiet confirmation that the structure they're relying on is already under strain. Because when one person is willing to step forward, others start reconsidering their silence. When one rule is broken without consequence, the rest start looking optional. And when one person is recognized as worth protecting, the story around them begins to change whether anyone wants it to or not. They're not saying it out loud yet, but they're thinking it. That moment wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning of a shift they're not ready to navigate. Because now they have to move, knowing the room isn't what it used to be. Knowing you're not who they thought you were. Knowing that someone is willing to draw a line they didn't expect to be drawn. And as they sit with that realization, adjusting, recalibrating, pretending everything is normal, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The next move isn't going to come from the same place the last one did. And this time, they won't be able to pretend they didn't see it coming. Here's the part that's quietly hilarious if you know how these rooms actually work. Everyone is acting calm, everyone is nodding, everyone is speaking in neutral tones like nothing has shifted. But internally, they're spiraling, because the rules they depended on just proved optional. And once a rule becomes optional, it's already dead. They don't know how to function in environments where silence isn't guaranteed, where compliance isn't automatic, where someone might intervene at any moment without warning. They built their confidence on predictability, and predictability just walked out the door with that one sentence spoken on your behalf. Now they're trying to locate the source of the disruption, not you. You're the outcome. They're trying to figure out who went to war for you and why. Because power doesn't fear opposition nearly as much as it fears alliances it didn't authorize. The question bouncing around the room isn't, was that appropriate? It's who else would do that? And that question spreads fast. It infects decisions. It slows momentum. It turns every interaction into a risk assessment. Suddenly people are choosing words more carefully, watching reactions, testing boundaries with half steps instead of full strides. They're also running a secondary calculation they'll never admit to. If someone was willing to step in like that, what does it say about you that they missed? What does it say about their judgment, their perception, their supposed ability to read the room? Because here's the uncomfortable truth they're brushing up against. People don't go to war for liabilities. They don't stake credibility on someone they think is weak, unstable, or expendable. That defense wasn't charity. It was a signal. And signals like that ripple far beyond the moment itself. This is where the humor turns dark if you're paying attention. The same people who once dismissed you are now scrambling to position themselves closer to neutrality. Not support, not alliance, neutrality. Because neutrality feels safer when the ground is moving. They're not apologizing. They're not acknowledging the shift directly. They're just adjusting behavior in small, almost comical ways. Slightly kinder tones, sudden interest, convenient amnesia about previous assumptions. It would be funny if it wasn't so predictable. And you're not reacting at all. That's the part that's driving them insane. You're not basking. You're not leveraging the moment socially. You're not changing how you show up to signal victory. You're not reminding anyone what happened. You're letting the silence do the work again. But this time, it's a different kind of silence. This one is heavy, charged, full of implications. It's the silence of someone who doesn't need to prove they're protected because the protection already revealed itself. They're starting to understand something they really don't like. That the defense didn't come from loyalty built over years of social grooming. It came from respect built through observation. Someone watched how you move, how you operate, how you don't collapse under pressure, how you don't perform insecurity for sympathy, how you don't beg for relevance. And they decided, quietly, that letting the room misread you any longer was inefficient. That's the kind of reasoning that terrifies people who rely on dominance through optics rather than substance. So now the room is haunted by a ghost question. If you weren't worth defending before, why are you now? And the only answer that makes sense is the one they don't want to face. You didn't suddenly become something. You always were. They just weren't paying attention because they were too busy managing appearances. That realization hits hard because it exposes a deeper flaw. Their system doesn't identify real leverage early. It identifies compliance. It identifies noise. It identifies people who perform importance loudly enough to be seen. You didn't do that. You let time do its thing. You let patterns reveal themselves. You let results accumulate quietly. And when the moment came, someone else recognized the value before the room could erase it again. That's not luck. That's inevitability finally surfacing. And inevitability is impossible to argue with once it becomes visible. Now they're dealing with the fallout. Subtle, but real. Decisions are being second-guessed. Conversations are being revisited. People are wondering who's watching them the way that person watched you. Because if you slipped past their radar, who else might be doing the same? The room has lost its sense of omniscience, and that loss creates paranoia, disguised as professionalism. There's also something else happening beneath the surface, something even more destabilizing. The defense wasn't emotional, it wasn't dramatic, it was clean, almost boring. And boring disruptions are the worst kind. They don't give you something obvious to fight. You can't accuse it of bias or overreaction. You can't dismiss it as theatrics. It just sits there, undeniable, like a data point that refuses to go away. And every time someone tries to move forward as if nothing happened, it's there in the background, quietly contradicting the old narrative. They're realizing now that the power dynamic didn't glitch because of you. It glitched because of what your presence forced someone else to acknowledge. And once that acknowledgement exists, the room can't return to pretending you're invisible. They can try. They will try. But it won't work the same way, because now invisibility would require active effort, and effort reveals intent. Here's where the chaotic part creeps in. They're starting to overcorrect. People who never noticed you before are suddenly hyper-aware. People who never spoke to you are suddenly polite. People who once dismissed your ideas are suddenly curious. It's awkward, transparent, almost embarrassing, like watching a system try to patch itself in real time while pretending nothing broke. And the more they try to smooth it over, the more obvious the fracture becomes. You can feel the room stretching now, can't you? Trying to accommodate a reality it wasn't designed for. Trying to hold you in a category that no longer fits. You're not the problem they managed. You're not the variable they minimized. You're something else now in their perception. A risk, a wild card, a reminder that their control was never as absolute as they believed. And that realization doesn't inspire confidence. It inspires caution. What really rattles them is that the person who spoke up didn't need to explain themselves. They didn't justify their stance. They didn't soften the impact. They said what needed to be said and let it land. That kind of authority doesn't argue. It declares, and declarations shift gravity whether people like it or not. The room adjusted because it had to, not because it wanted to. Now imagine being someone who built their influence on being the loudest voice, the most confident presence, the unchallenged narrator. Imagine realizing that one calm sentence from someone else can undo years of quiet positioning. That's the fear they're sitting with now. Not fear of you directly, but fear of what you represent. A future where their dominance depends on actual substance instead of repetition. And this is where it becomes clear. That moment wasn't about protection. It was about exposure. It exposed who had been comfortable with your marginalization. It exposed who benefited from the old dynamic. It exposed who assumed silence meant permission. And exposure changes how people behave long after the moment passes. They're watching you now, trying to predict what you'll do next. But the problem is they're still using the wrong model. They think the next move will come from you directly. Another action, another statement, another visible disruption. They don't understand yet that the real shift already happened. The board changed. The pieces didn't. And that misunderstanding is about to cost them. Because while they're focused on you, while they're tracking your expressions, your tone, your timing, they're missing the more dangerous variable entirely. The room itself has changed. The social gravity has shifted. The permissions they relied on are no longer assumed. And once that happens, power stops flowing the way it used to. It starts leaking. Slowly, at first. Almost politely, until one day someone realizes decisions aren't landing the way they used to. Instructions don't carry the same weight. Assumptions don't close conversations anymore. That's when panic sets in, because panic is what happens when authority discovers it needs consent. Here's the part they don't want to acknowledge. The person who went to war for you didn't just speak once and disappear back into neutrality. They altered how everyone else is now allowed to think. They created a precedent, and precedent is lethal to fragile hierarchies, because precedent gives other people ideas. It whispers that intervention is possible, that silence is optional, that you don't always have to wait your turn if the turn was never meant to come. That whisper spreads faster than any announcement ever could. Now the room is full of people pretending they don't hear it, while secretly wondering if they should act on it next time. And that internal debate is corrosive. It slows everything down. It creates hesitation where there used to be certainty. And certainty was the only thing holding the structure together. They didn't realize how dependent they were on it until it cracked. You see, systems like this don't collapse because of rebellion. They collapse because of confidence erosion. Because once people see that authority can be challenged cleanly and survive, they start reassessing their own limits. They start noticing where they've been shrinking unnecessarily. They start asking why certain lines existed in the first place. And those questions don't stay theoretical. They show up in meetings, in decisions, in moments where someone pauses instead of complying instantly. That pause is where power goes to die. They're also realizing something else, something deeply uncomfortable. That defense wasn't reactive, it wasn't emotional, it was anticipatory. It came from someone who could see where things were headed and decided to intervene before the damage became obvious to everyone else. That means someone in the room understands trajectories better than they do. Someone who can read future consequences while others are still clinging to past arrangements. And that realization is quietly devastating. Because now the question isn't just, why did they defend you? It's what do they see coming that we don't? And once that question exists, trust in leadership fractures. Not publicly, internally, in the places that matter. People start hedging, preparing contingencies, keeping options open. The room becomes a collection of individuals protecting themselves instead of a unified structure enforcing order. That's when things really start slipping. And all of this is happening while you remain almost offensively calm. You're not escalating. You're not exploiting the moment. You're not acting like someone who just gained leverage. You're acting like someone who always knew this was inevitable. And that demeanor reframes the entire event. It suggests that the defense wasn't a surprise to you either. That it was simply timing, aligning with reality. That's the part that really messes with their heads. Because if you expected this, if you knew someone would eventually draw that line, then what else do you know? What else are you prepared for? What else is already in motion that they haven't clocked yet? Power hates uncertainty, and you've become a walking source of it without doing anything overt. Just by existing differently, just by refusing to react the way they're used to. Now the humor turns even darker. They're trying to restore balance using the same tools that just failed them. More meetings, more alignment conversations, more vague statements about collaboration and shared values. All of it feels hollow now, because everyone remembers the moment when those values were ignored until someone decided they weren't optional anymore. The words don't land. They can't. The spell is broken. They're also quietly monitoring the person who spoke up for you. Watching their interactions, analyzing their tone, trying to determine whether that moment was a one-time anomaly or the start of a pattern. Because if it's a pattern, then the power map needs to be redrawn. And redrawing maps means admitting the old ones were wrong. People built careers on those maps, egos, identities, entire self-concepts. That's not something they're eager to confront. So instead they stall, they observe, they delay decisions. They hope momentum will return on its own. But momentum doesn't return after a moment like that. It either transforms or it collapses. There's no rewind, no going back to a version of the room where silence was guaranteed. Everyone knows too much now. And knowledge changes behavior whether people want it to or not. Here's what's really happening beneath all the surface tension. The room is being forced to evolve, and evolution is never comfortable for those at the top. Because evolution redistributes advantage. It rewards awareness over position, substance over performance, quiet capability over loud assertion. And those shifts never benefit the people who were winning under the old rules. You've become a reference point now. Not publicly, not explicitly, but internally. When decisions are made, your name flickers in the background. When judgments are passed, your situation becomes a silent comparison. When someone considers speaking up, they remember what happened when someone did it for you. That memory emboldens them, even if they don't act on it immediately. And emboldenment accumulates. They can feel the timeline accelerating. Not because you're pushing it, but because the structure is under strain. Cracks spread faster than control mechanisms can patch them, and every attempt to suppress the memory of that moment only reinforces its significance. People can't unlearn what they saw. They can't unknow that the hierarchy hesitated, that authority blinked, that protection emerged from an unexpected direction. You should understand this clearly. You didn't gain power in that room. Power was revealed around you. That's a crucial distinction. Gained power can be taken away. Revealed power just changes how the environment behaves. And environments adjust whether anyone approves or not. That's why this feels different. That's why they're uneasy, because this wasn't a negotiation. It was a disclosure. They're starting to sense it now. That the next disruption won't look like conflict either. It won't be loud. It won't be dramatic. It will look like normal operations, slowly failing to produce the same outcomes. Like influence not converting the way it used to. Like authority needing reinforcement instead of being assumed. That's the slow death of dominance, and it's already underway. And here's the part they absolutely don't want to face. You didn't orchestrate this. You didn't manipulate the room into defending you. You simply became someone worth defending without having to ask. And once that happens, the entire dynamic flips. Because protection signals future relevance. It signals investment. It signals that betting against you might be a mistake. And mistakes are expensive in rooms like that. So they'll keep watching you, tracking you, trying to anticipate a move that isn't coming from the place they expect. And while they do, the real consequences of that moment will continue unfolding quietly around them. In delayed decisions, in cautious alliances, in unspoken shifts of loyalty, in people choosing different battles because they don't know where the lines are anymore. They thought someone speaking up for you was an isolated incident, a glitch they could ignore. They don't see yet that it was a signal flare, a warning, a marker of a transition already in progress. And by the time they fully understand what that moment set in motion, the room will be operating under rules they didn't write. And that's where this is heading. Not toward confrontation, not toward spectacle, toward a reality where their old methods simply stop working, where authority has to justify itself, where silence has to be earned, where people remember that one calm sentence spoken on your behalf and realize the balance of power never really belonged where they thought it did. Because once that realization sets in, the room can't go back to pretending. Pretending requires innocence, and innocence is gone now. Everyone knows too much. Everyone felt the glitch. Everyone remembers the exact second the air shifted and the hierarchy hesitated. And no matter how smoothly they tried to resume business as usual, there's an awareness underneath it all that never shuts off again. The awareness that someone crossed a line for you and nothing collapsed. No lightning strike, no punishment, no immediate consequence, just a quiet redistribution of gravity. That's when the real comedy starts, the dark kind. The kind that plays out slowly, over weeks, over decisions, over subtle misfires in authority. People who used to command rooms find themselves explaining more than they're comfortable with. Instructions start sounding like requests. Requests start sounding like negotiations. Negotiations stall. And nobody can quite explain why everything feels heavier than it used to. They blame timing. They blame complexity. They blame outside factors, anything except the truth. That the room changed allegiance in a way that can't be undone. You see, when someone goes to war for you in a room like that, it doesn't crown you king. It removes your status as collateral damage, and that alone rewires everything. Because once you're no longer expendable, people have to account for you. Not just socially, strategically. They have to factor in the possibility that decisions involving you might trigger resistance they didn't budget for. And that hesitation ripples outward, infecting plans that once felt airtight. They're learning now that power doesn't vanish all at once. It erodes. It becomes inefficient. It requires more effort to achieve the same results, more justification, more alignment meetings, more reassurance. And every extra step is a tax on dominance. They're paying that tax now without fully understanding why. They just know things don't move the way they used to. Doors don't open as easily. Momentum stalls at odd moments. And somewhere in the back of their minds, they know exactly when it started. The truly destabilizing part is that they can't isolate the problem. It's not you. It's not the person who spoke up. It's the precedent, the memory, the proof that intervention is possible, that silence isn't guaranteed, that protection can emerge without warning. Once that proof exists, people start testing it unconsciously. They push back a little more. They hesitate a little longer. They speak a little more plainly. Not because they're brave, but because they've seen the cost of speaking drop. That's how systems fail. Not through rebellion, through normalization of dissent. And that's already underway. They're watching it happen in real time and pretending they're still in control of the pace. They're not. The pace changed the moment someone went to war for you, and nothing bad happened as a result. And you? You're not accelerating it. You're not orchestrating chaos. You're letting entropy do its job. You're moving forward, focused on your own trajectory, while the environment around you adjusts, whether it wants to or not. That restraint reads as confidence, as inevitability, as someone who doesn't need to exploit moments, because moments keep arriving on their own. They're starting to realize that the defense wasn't about you being fragile. It was about you being underestimated. And underestimation is expensive when it comes due, because it means resources were misallocated, attention was misplaced, risk was misjudged. And now, the correction phase begins. They try to reevaluate you, but it's too late to do it quietly. The room remembers. Everyone saw who stepped in. Everyone felt the shift. Reclassification at this stage requires explanation, and explanations reveal weakness. So instead they hedge, they watch, they delay, they pretend neutrality while subtly repositioning themselves away from old assumptions. It's clumsy, transparent, almost funny in its desperation, because they're trying to regain control using the same invisible tools that just failed them. Narrative management, strategic silence, selective acknowledgement. But those tools only work when people believe in them, and belief cracked the moment someone broke ranks for you. Now comes the phase they hate the most, the waiting. Not your waiting, theirs. Waiting to see if another line gets drawn, waiting to see if someone else speaks up next time, waiting to see if the person who defended you does it again, waiting to see if you ever need defending at all. That waiting creates tension, and tension corrodes authority faster than open challenge ever could. You've become a silent reference point now. When people consider decisions, your situation flickers through their minds, not consciously, instinctively, as a reminder that the room isn't what it pretends to be, that alliances aren't as fixed as they appear, that someone unexpected might intervene. That reminder changes behavior even when no one says a word. And here's the part they really can't stomach. You didn't earn this through politics. You earned it through consistency, through not folding, through not performing desperation, through not collapsing when you were meant to, through becoming someone whose trajectory was obvious to the right eyes long before the room caught up. That's the kind of leverage that doesn't announce itself early. It reveals itself suddenly and all at once, usually when it's too late to prevent. They're beginning to understand that the person who spoke up didn't just defend you from something. They defended the future from being distorted by a bad call. They intervened because allowing the old narrative to continue would have been inefficient, short-sighted, maybe even dangerous. That's not sentiment. That's foresight. And foresight always outranks position in the long run. So now the room exists in an awkward in-between state. Too aware to function the old way. Too cowardly to fully adapt. And that limbo is where mistakes multiply. Where authority overreaches, where decisions get made to reassert control instead of optimize outcomes. And those decisions carry consequences. Quiet ones at first. Missed chances, lost trust, gradual erosion of credibility. You're not celebrating any of this. You don't need to. You're watching it with the detached clarity of someone who understands systems. You know what happens when a structure loses its monopoly on silence. You know what happens when people realize they don't have to absorb pressure indefinitely. You know what happens when power is exposed as conditional instead of absolute. It doesn't explode, it decays. And the funniest part, if you're being honest, is how seriously they still take themselves while it's happening. The grand speeches, the strategic memos, the forced confidence, all of it layered over a quiet understanding that the room is no longer theirs alone. That influence is now contested terrain. That the rules they enforced for years were never laws, just habits. They wanted you manageable. They wanted you isolated. They wanted you quiet enough to ignore and useful enough to exploit. And now they're stuck with a reality where you're neither. You're not demanding power. You're not chasing validation. You're not even engaging the dynamic directly. You're simply moving forward, and the environment is rearranging itself around that motion, whether they approve or not. That's the consequence of someone going to war for you in that room. Not applause, not protection forever, but a permanent disruption of the assumption that you're alone. And once that assumption dies, everything built on top of it starts to wobble. They'll try to rewrite the story eventually. They always do. Minimize the moment, reframe the defense as insignificant, attribute it to misunderstanding or timing. But rewrites only work when the audience forgets. And this room won't. Because everyone felt it. Everyone remembers where they were sitting. Everyone remembers who spoke. Everyone remembers the pause that followed. And memory like that doesn't fade. It shapes decisions long after the words are gone. So no, this isn't heading toward confrontation. It's heading toward irrelevance for the methods they relied on. It's heading toward a future where authority has to perform competence instead of entitlement. Where silence is no longer free. Where protection appears unpredictably. Where power dynamics glitch, not because someone is loud, but because someone is aligned. They asked themselves the wrong question after that moment. They asked why someone defended you. The real question they should have asked is, what kind of system allows that defense to be so destabilizing in the first place? Because the answer exposes everything they don't want to see. You didn't win a battle. You triggered a recalibration. You didn't rise up. You made the floor unstable. You didn't need to speak. Someone else did it for you. And that single act did more damage to the old order than any confrontation ever could. And that's the part they'll never fully recover from. Because now they know, not intellectually, in their nervous system, that the room is no longer predictable, that silence isn't guaranteed, that loyalty can appear without permission, and that you are no longer a safe variable to underestimate. Someone went to war for you in that room. Everything shifted after that, and no matter how hard they try to move on, they'll always remember the moment they realized the balance of power had already changed, and they were late to noticing it.